Hello to all of the introverted misfits who are tuning into this episode of the Introverted Misfit podcast. It's been a while, or at least I feel like it's been a while since I last talked to you, and that's because I missed last week's podcast episode, which I apologize for. This month has been a little bit busier than usual for me as far as traveling goes and just allocating time to invest in recording podcast episodes and trying to get this business off the ground. I spent half of last week in West Palm Beach, of course, for the Autism in Black conference, which you may have heard me reference in my most recent podcast episode, the one before this one, which was amazing, by the way. And I'm definitely looking forward to attending next year in West Palm Beach. And then next week, I will be in Texas. And then after that, guess what? In about 4 weeks, I'll be back in Texas again to prayerfully witness the birth of my nephew, which is very exciting. I don't know if I'm more nervous or excited to witness my first birth, but whatever I'll be feeling about it, I'm looking forward to it. Although luckily this time I do not have to drive to Texas like I had to drive to West Palm Beach. I will be flying this time, which as I'm starting to travel more and more, I'm learning that driving past 6 hours, probably actually 5 hours, is a big no-no for me. Unless I absolutely have to drive somewhere longer than 5 or 6 hours, I probably will just not do it. Or I'll try to fly if possible, especially not by myself, because just sitting in the car by myself for that long, I only have so many playlists and so many songs I can listen to before I go crazy. Um, Speaking of starting to travel more, I have got some really amazing things that are coming up related to my travels and the people that I get to connect with and meet, all that are related to my brand, this brand, the Introverted Misfit. This includes some potential speaking opportunities, more conferences, more podcast collaborations on both my podcast and other creators' podcasts, some of which will be coming up as soon as next week, and a lot more. And I want you, listener, to be in the know about all of them. The best way to keep up with all things happening with the Introverted Misfit is my newsletter. When you join my free newsletter with your email address, you will receive the latest news and updates directly to your email, all of which are meant to help you embrace your inner misfit and stand in your introverted power with confidence. If you want to join, go to theintrovertedmisfit.com/newsletter, or you can go to the description box of this episode and you will find that link there right after the big letters, join my newsletter. I'm going to try to make it as easy as possible for you to find so that you can sign up there and you will never miss out on everything that I've got going on. So pause the video, go join the newsletter, and then come back when you're done. Okay, now let's jump into the topic of today's podcast episode: how your introverted personality may be holding you back and what you can do about it. First, I need to lay the groundwork for what this episode is and is not about, because I know after seeing the title and after hearing the topic that I just stated, I know that it might have given you an incorrect assumption about what I'm about to talk about. This episode is not about bashing introversion. It's not about trying to mold you into an extrovert, and it's not about making you feel bad about being an introvert. This episode is about how to stop letting your introverted personality, something that I think should be one of your greatest strengths in life, be your biggest hurdle when it comes to communicating and forming relationships. I've been trying to think of a really good metaphor to explain this concept, and I think I found one, although it may sound a little bit abstract at first, but I just want you to hear me out. I want you to think of an elephant trunk. A trunk is such a powerful tool for the elephant. It allows them to grab leaves and vegetation and eat it, especially when they need to reach really high in the trees for their food. It allows them to suck up water and transfer that water to its mouth so that it can drink it when it's thirsty. It even allows the elephants to spray water all over themselves on their massive bodies to cool them down when it gets really hot. Not only is the trunk a crucial tool for the elephant, but it's one of the defining parts of this very magnificent animal. But what would happen if the elephant didn't know how to use its trunk? What if it didn't realize that it had complete control over the trunk's movement and what the trunk could do? The trunk would be a hindrance instead of a really useful tool. Think about it. It would just be this heavy, big, long thing that is blocking the elephant's mouth. It would make it difficult for the elephant to eat, drink, and survive. So what should be the elephant's most useful tool for surviving and thriving has become its biggest roadblock to success. What if your introverted personality or your trunk has been holding you back instead of moving you forward in life, all because you don't know how to use it the right way? Maybe you're not creating the fulfilling relationships and social connections that you want. Maybe you're not progressing in your career or your business if that's a goal of yours. Maybe you can't find solid friends on whom you can rely and who actually like your quiet, introverted personality. All because you don't know the power that your introversion holds. We need to fix this problem for you. But first, we need to address this question. How do you even know whether your introverted personality is holding you back or not? Or whether or not you are using the full capabilities of your introverted strengths? I talk a lot on my podcast and my other platforms about this concept of quiet fear versus quiet confidence as it pertains to introverts, which of course makes sense because I have a whole program called Communicate with Quiet Confidence, which is specifically for helping shy and awkward introverts become socially confident. So I talk a lot about this concept. And I think the answer to the question that I posed previously starts with this concept: quiet fear versus quiet confidence. When you are communicating with quiet fear as an introvert, your quietness and your reluctancy towards socializing and speaking up are rooted in fear or nervousness or even a lack of self-confidence. So here's what that might look like. You're too afraid to speak up, even when you know you have something valuable to say, so instead you stay quiet. You don't say anything because you're worried about if people will think your ideas are stupid. You walk around so afraid of potentially being embarrassed or rejected that you can't even bring yourself to look people in the eye. You go to social events and gatherings, and you just sit in the corner all night long, clutching your drink for dear life because you don't know how to start a conversation with someone. In the face of basic conflicts and disagreements with friends, acquaintances, coworkers, etc., you may keep your mouth shut because you're scared that people won't like you if you stand up for yourself or put your foot down or even just simply state an opinion that doesn't align with theirs. All of those scenarios that I just described have nothing to do with being quiet and being introverted. Those and other similar scenarios have to do with fear and a lack of self-confidence. On the other hand, when you are communicating with quiet confidence, your fear is not controlling your every move and every word you say. This means that when you're ready to speak up and make connections, you can put yourself out there and do it confidently while using your introverted communication strengths. One-on-one connection, deep thought, deep conversation, and introspection. When you are communicating with quiet fear, your introversion is acting as a shield behind which you can hide. You may be missing out on opportunities, social connections, valuable social connections, potential friends and relationships. And it's not because you're an introvert. It's because you lack confidence in yourself and your introverted qualities. And as a result, your introversion starts to become an excuse to stay quiet and seclude yourself, even when you are in the mood to socialize and talk to people. In other words, you are that elephant that doesn't know how to use its trunk. Well, let's learn how to use it right now. Let's talk about how you can connect with your introverted powers so that you can get out of your own way. You can start by finding one opportunity to build your introvert muscle, just one. I want you to think about what your greatest communication strength is as an introvert and in general, just as a person, not even as an introvert. Even if this way of communicating is not as strong as you'd like for it to be just yet, think about which way of communicating works best for you or is most comfortable for you. Is it one-on-one conversations versus being in big groups of people? Is it deep conversations about books or politics or something else? Is it conversations that allow for deep reflection? Is it all of those or a certain combination of some? I want you to pick one of them or some of them, if you prefer, and then think of an event or an opportunity where you can utilize those specific strengths. It could be a book club or a writing club, if you know of one, either online or in person. Actually, just this last week, I attended my eldest sister's um, creative writing club that she started with a few of her English teacher friends. She's an English teacher for high school. And it was really fun, actually, for an introvert like me who likes to write, who likes to read, when I can, make myself sit down and find time to read. It was really fun. And it was a place where I could share my ideas with people who were just as introverted as me and liked to have deep conversations, liked to think deeply about things in general. So that's what kind of gave me the idea of this writing club or book club. It could be having lunch with one or two friends. It could be finding a local hiking group with a small amount of people or anything else that you can come up with. There are so many opportunities if you can just commit to looking for them and most importantly, being open to them. I'll give you a recent example. As I already mentioned towards the beginning of this episode, I recently returned from attending a conference. During the various events, there were many opportunities to talk to people on an individual basis or in really small groups, which are both scenarios in which I tend to thrive. If there's any more than three people, maybe four, that's where I start to struggle a little bit. I start to struggle with picking up on those multiple social cues and finding where I can fit into a discussion. But the key is I had to look for those opportunities and I had to be open to them happening to me. So if I saw someone standing around by themselves and they looked like they might be open to a conversation, meaning they weren't staring at their phone and texting or reading something very intently, I would casually make my way over to them. If we caught eye contact, I would smile and then ask them a question or give them a compliment to start off the conversation. By the way, if you are a shy and socially awkward introvert who needs help with starting conversations, you should definitely check out my free audio guide, 3 Simple Ways to Start a Conversation with Anyone. You can check the link in the description for the link to that guide. And there were also a few times where I found myself in large groups of people, like at the networking parties and other activities. And there is usually either one or two people in the larger group who were just as introverted and a little more reserved, just like me, that I could talk to. And trust me, somehow we always end up finding each other, usually because the extroverts in the group are usually talking up a storm amongst themselves. It's just how it works. So we kind of naturally separate ourselves out sometimes. And if there wasn't anyone who was available to talk at the moment, I would just listen in on an ongoing conversation, appear interested in what they were talking about, and nod along and meet other people's eye contact. And a lot of times, sometimes they would just bring me into the discussion if they could tell that I looked like I had something to say, or I looked like I was interested in what they were talking about. Now, you have to be careful with this one because there is a difference between politely entering the discussion and just straight up interrupting and coming off as rude. I promise, if you position yourself to be seen, put yourself in the right environment, the right social environment, and you appear pleasant and open to interaction, you will find opportunities to utilize your communication strengths as an introvert. It will just happen. And then once you master that one opportunity, you just keep looking for the next opportunity and the next one and the next one. And then the more comfortable you become with using your introverted communication powers. Misfits, if you are still one of those introverts who is hiding behind your introverted personality, it's time to stop hiding. And it's time to start using your introversion like the powerful communication tool that it really is. A tool that gets you into rooms you never thought you could be in. A tool that makes a new friend. A tool that gets you a promotion at work so that you can start making some more money. You can do it. You can decide today that you're ready to embrace your introverted nature and start using it the way that it's meant to be used. But if you need some help to get you over that hump, to get you over that initial fear that you may have about putting yourself out there, book a free connection call with me today using the link in the description, or you can go directly to theintrovertedmisfit.com/coaching, and then you can read all of the information about my one-on-one program for shy, awkward introverts called Communicate with Quiet Confidence before you book your connection call with me. Even if you don't end up working with me long term, this 30-minute free call with me is meant to be your first step towards connecting with someone, me, who understands what you're going through as a shy and socially awkward introvert. When I still had social anxiety, I remember exactly what it felt like to be hiding behind my introverted personality and using it as a way to avoid talking to people and facing my fears. It was miserable. My personal relationships, if I could manage to create them somehow, and my professional life were being stunted, and I didn't even realize that I had the power within me to change that, to socialize and make connections without having to act like an extrovert. Eventually, I made it out of that pit of despair, but I didn't do it all by myself. I had some counseling to help me along the way. And I don't think that you should do this journey all by yourself either. So, whether you decide to seek help with therapy, counseling, or coaching, like with yours truly, you can do it with the right support and the right guidance. So, make sure to check the description again to book that free connection call with me if you are a shy and socially awkward introvert who is ready to stop living in fear and start communicating with quiet confidence. That's all for today's episode. As always, if you enjoyed this talk, please don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button, leave a review and or a comment whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Spotify podcasts, or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share this podcast with a friend. Thanks for listening and have a great day.